This episode of Heavy Cardboard is brought to you from the great folks over at GameSurplus.com, bringing the world of board games to you. Now, on to the show. Heavy Cardboard, episode 99, the top 50 of right now, again. Coming to you from the land of This List Goes to 11. Welcome to Heavy Cardboard, where we talk medium and heavy strategy board games, war games, 18xx. In this episode, you're going to be getting a whole lot of, well, all of that. We're your hosts. I'm Edward.
And I'm Amanda.
Top 50 again, huh?
Again. Well, the best part is that it's the top 50 of all time of right now.
Right, yeah.
Like the guy on, is it Adult Swim, that does the picks on Scott Van Pelt show, and it's the, what is it, the Stone Cold Lock of the Century of the Week.
Of the week, yes. All right. So Arizona Game Fair is in just a couple days for us.
That's right.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
It should be warmer.
Yes.
Number one. Although, let's face it, we're going to be indoors, but there's that.
And so it'll be freezing because it always is freezing at conventions.
Or conventions, casinos, movie theaters. 3 places I will never be without a hoodie.
That is correct.
Yep. You know, for a big guy, I get cold awfully easy. Which
you do.
It's weird. I have my mom's circulation, especially my hands and my feet.
Yeah, just none at all, really.
You know, whenever I go to the casino, I'll ask the cocktail waitress for green tea a lot of times in a mug.
Just so you can hold it, right?
Yeah, it's a hand warmer.
Yep.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, y'all know I love tea, but yeah, it's a hand warmer. It got to the point to where I was like, fingerless gloves.
Mm-hmm. I used to wear them at work until I started using a heater.
And I'm like, really? We're going to go there? But yeah, it's getting to the point to where maybe I'm considering it. And it's not even that I'm cold. It's just my hands and feet are freezing.
Yep.
Anyway, moving on.
Yes. So we're going to be there Friday, all day Saturday, and most of Sunday at Arizona Game Fair. So come on by if you see us and say hello. And we will have some T-shirts and swag and stuff. So
yeah, definitely. And just because we're in a game or whatever, come by and say hi.
Absolutely.
We don't mind. And anybody that we play games with, we'll just preface with, hey, as long as y'all don't mind, we'll join the game, whatever. Just if people come by, we're going to, holler at them.
Yes.
But not to
There's
the
not
detriment of the game. But you know what I mean.
We're still going to,
Yeah, so definitely come by. And also, if anybody wants to grab some food while we're there, we're down for that. We have no plans outside of the interview with Paul Dean and the 2, I was going to say seminars, but they're panels that we're going to be doing.
And
outside of that, we're
one dinner with Brian Fromm.
Right, which, if you're hearing this, come on in. We're going to make reservations. We don't know if it's probably going to be Saturday night is my guess when we do that. So, yeah, if you see us, which hard to miss.
Yeah.
Say hi.
Tall guy and bald head over here. So
whoa.
I meant me. Tall guy and baldy over here.
Oh, okay. Well, on the side.
Yeah, on the side.
There's that.
Yeah. I was very excited to hear one of our listeners wrote us an email and let us know that because of my sparkly pen talk last week, he went to the website that I talked about, Pen Gems, and bought his girlfriend a pen for Valentine's Day.
That's awesome. And he had mentioned something about planners or notebooks or something.
He said he'd used my talk in the past about other things to get her stuff. So that made me very happy.
And I take it she was happy with it.
Well, she's still his girlfriend, so I would assume so.
Fair point. The Ask the Elephant over on Caffeine was pretty cool. That was a successful, I would say. I mean, people showed up, so
calls it a success.
There you go. It took some getting used to on both sides, but overall, I think the experience was positive, and looking forward to exploring it more and watching the platform grow. And I'm excited to see how it all plays out. So if you guys haven't checked it out, head over to caffeine.tv, and you can definitely check out our stream, which we're Heavy Cardboard over there. Shocker. Or, any of the other streamers over there, if that's your thing. Went up the hill, played some cards on Monday, and it's crazy how nervous I was to play 2-5 because back in the day I used to play 5-10 no limit, no big deal when I was playing for a living. Nowadays I just go up there to mess around and I'll play 1-2. But with the weather, it was snowing when I got up there, and I figure, wow, this is probably going to keep a lot of people from coming up the hill. And the game's not so great at the 1-2. Got invited to, or went on the 2-5 list. And yeah, once I settled down and got over my nerves, I realized, oh yeah, hey, it's like riding a bike in a lot of ways. Had a lot of fun. Mostly stayed out of tricky spots. I made 3 mistakes that I can think of in my head. I'm sure I made more than that, but 3 spots that I wish I'd had back. But overall, a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to going up the hill couple times, 2-3 times a month. I think that'll be kind of my way of to decompress and relax, which it's funny. Oh, hey, let's go play poker for hundreds of dollars.
It's a hobby. It's just,
it is. It is. And let's face it, I'm better than the average bear, boo boo.
Yes, you are.
So yeah.
I mean, it's just like whenever you are going up the hill to manage your stress level and kind of take a day off and work on another hobby, I do the same thing. I stay home and work on, my planners or organize my stickers or my pens or whatever. And it's just a good release.
Yeah. Different hobbies for different folks. Yeah. And it's just my hobby happens to be gambling. But I know that sounds bad, but it's gambling with positive expected value.
True.
So plus EV for those
mine's just,
nerds out there.
Mine's just, sticky and lots of paper.
And sparkly.
And duh.
Big thank you to our sponsor, BoardGameTables.com. If you're in the market for a customized, one-of-a-kind board game table, go check them out, BoardGameTables.com.
It's been 47 episodes since we did our last top 50 of Right Now.
That's 540 days for those counting. And yes, I did. Okay, I'm lying. I didn't count. I typed into Google, how many days has it been since August 16th, 2016?
They're pretty good about, figuring stuff out like that for you.
Right, yeah. If only there was an interconnected series of tubes. So 540 days. That's how long it's been since we did one of these. Our goal was, we said we'd probably do it annually around the turn of the year. So we're a year late. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Exactly. All right. We're here now.
Yep.
So August 16th, 2016. This should be awfully interesting to see how this has changed, because that was when you and I did our list. Mm-hmm. The first time Tony and I did this, I picked out 38 no-brainers that were going to be on my top 50. Last time, I was able to go through and I had 44 no-brainers. This time, a little bit different. I actually made a first pass and just wrote down games, ended up with 94 on it. Then I whittled it down. Really wasn't that hard until I got down to 52 and 51. Hence the coming to you from this list goes to 11 because I could not get past 51 for the life of me. Surprisingly hard, but here we are. I was able to do it. How about you? How hard was this?
It honestly really wasn't that difficult. So what I did was
me.
I copied over my list from the previous episode into Excel. Then I went, I went to the basement. I went to BJG. I looked at our YouTube live streams. I looked at our episodes and all that kind of stuff. Made a list of other games that I wanted to add. So had that list, had my old list. Then I went through my old list and deleted ones that I didn't feel belonged in my top 50 anymore. And magically, they're left 50.
Teach me. No, so I did this independent of my old list because I didn't want to be influenced by that. I wanted to be like, okay, how do I feel about this game now? That's all I did. So went about it a little bit different, but in the end, we ended up with top 50 each of us, right?
And not a ton of crossover either.
I mean, there's going to be a fair bit, obviously, but there's a surprising, or I don't know, there's enough differences here that I think will make for interesting discussion, or at least that's the hope, right? Mm-hmm. So here are some guidelines that we followed. This is going to be very similar to the last time we did it, but with an addition. So no filler games. We're talking no Paris Connection, no QE, no Arboretum, stuff like that. For the sake of these lists, we labeled filler as any game in which you wouldn't go to a game day to specifically play. At least we wouldn't specifically go to a game day to play it. No expansions, although there may be some games in which we say the game with the expansion or whatever. Only released games. So, no Brass Birmingham, no Call to Post, no City of the Big Shoulders, Feudum, Founders of Gloomhaven, etc.
Blurg.
Even though we've played all of those.
Yeah, Blurg.
Amanda had some of those.
Blurg.
She had to do some rejiggering.
Yeah.
Numbers 50 down to 21, we did alphabetically because, let's face it, it's kind of arbitrary. The further down the list you go, I mean, really, what's the difference between number 41 and number 33?
Right.
Yeah, right? And then we did them in order from number 20 down to number 1. And it's not a complete list. There's still, even to this day, there are still plenty of games that neither one of us has gotten a chance to either play at all or play enough to include on our list. This is our respective top 50 of, I don't know, I'm ballparking here, about 1,000 games that we've played total. So you're talking the top 5%. So if the game's not listed, it might be in the top 6%. That's still pretty awfully strong, I feel like. All right, so we're going to go 50 to 21 alphabetically.
Yes.
Or alphanumerically.
Right, and we'll kind of like snake draft it.
Yeah, so go for it.
All right. My 50 to 21, first one is 1846.
Also in my bottom part of the 50. Whatever, it's in my top 50 here as well. So yeah, 1846.
Released by GMT to a wider audience, and that was great because it brought 18XX games to
the more
mainstream.
Yeah. Well, kind of, yeah, because let's face it, it's still niche, right?
Yeah.
However, this is one of the quintessential starter games for an 18XX. However, it also has plenty on its plate for experienced 18XX players.
It's not something that Tony could sit down with, we could sit down with, somebody that's never played an 18XX game and not be bored out of our mind.
Yep, totally. There's plenty here still to explore and to learn. So yeah, definitely an awesome game. Rightfully belongs on this list. And the other nice thing about it is, even though it has plenty of MacGuffins or, strange little quirks about the game, it's a really, really good entry point for players coming from a Euro background, because it's the most Euro-y kind of.
Yeah.
18XX, at least for beginners, I would say, for entry level, that's out there, in my opinion, at least. So that's 1846. Both of us have it in our top 50.
Yep. My next one is going to be 1860. Railways on the Isle of Wight.
Just played this, actually.
Yes, you did. And I'm jealous.
And not on my list. Not on my top 50. It's still up there, but yeah, it got cold this year. Plays well, 2 players. Plays well, 3 players. And during the live stream, actually, Tony's like, 2 and 3, I'm all set there. 4, no, maybe not. But there are some folks that do enjoy it, anywhere from 2 to 4 players.
Yeah, I don't mind it at 4. I think it's good. I like the kind of the staggered way that the companies come out, and I think it's a cool one. It's a good one.
I have cooled on this since having just played it, that I feel like it just has too many persnickety rules and just way too much fiddliness for... It's too clever for its own good, I would say. That said, I still enjoy the game, but not top 50. I would say top 100 for sure.
But 1860, Railways on the Isle of Wight.
So, keeping with a train theme here.
Yes, choo-choo.
1857. Sorry about this for anybody trying to shop on this list. This one's really, really hard to come by.
Yeah.
It's a winsome. 1857 is so it requires 1830 to be able to play it. It uses the tile set from 1830. And I forget what other aspects of it. So it requires you to own 1830. So it's kind of a kit, but that's kind of the winsome 18XXs to begin with. 1857 is a 1830 derivative game, and obviously it's using the components of 1830, so that would make sense. And it has one of the most brutal train rushes that I have ever experienced, to where it's possible that the 2s and the 3s never run, actually, and will rust. So you spent all this money, and then they rust. Most games, not all, but most games will end 2 hours, 2.5 hours by somebody going bankrupt. So it's a good entry point in a sense that you're not going to be there long.
Yeah.
However, it's
hard to get.
Really hard to get a hold of. So that's why we don't recommend 1857, but it's still one of my favorites. So yeah,
right.
1857. I take it not on yours?
That is not on my list.
All right, cool. So next up for me is one that I came out last year. An Infamous Traffic, designed by friend of the show, Cole Worley. Yeah, this was a very, very opaque game. If not, I would say top 3 opaque games that I have ever played. But once it clicked, I really, really dug it. Plus, I mean, it's about smuggling opium. That's kind of a not too heavily traveled topic.
Yeah, you can't really point to another one. It's just like this game that does that.
No, not at all. It's just like an
infamous traffic.
Right? Yep. So kudos to Cole and Hollenspiel for having the gumption to want to put this out there. And even though what the theme is, I dig it. Really, really big fan of it. So an Infamous Traffic.
Not on my list, but also a great game. My next one is 1880 China.
Also fell off my list.
And that's just fine. I haven't played it in a while, but I remember how awesome it was. And
communism, trains.
What else can you want, really? And a dragon on the front of it. What else do you need? It
definitely is a Lonnie Orgler design game. They have a certain feel about them, whether it's this, 18CZ, among others. And I enjoyed the game. I would like to play it more, but yeah, definitely a good game.
Yes. That is 1880 China. My next one is 18 Ardennes. This is one of my favorite 18xx games because of the way the companies work.
Which is?
You get a minor, and then that's kind of matched to a major. You can kind of roll it into the major. I think that's pretty cool. It's kind of an entry into having more than one company at the same time, kind of, because you know that you're going to be kind of upgrading it to a major. And I know that for me anyway, back in the old days before I played a lot of 18xx games, having more than one company terrified me. And it's not a big deal.
So this was a good kind of jumping off into that. Okay, all right, that's cool. It's one I've enjoyed playing and would happily get to the table again.
Absolutely, and that's 18 Ardennes.
Next up for me is Martin Wallace, his first entry on this list, and this just in, not the last, Automobile. I know there's a number of folks out there that don't like the randomness, but I feel like there's enough information in this game that you can read the game state as well as the other players and what their motivations are and do your best bet to mitigate the amount of randomness that is in this game. And I love the theme of it. I love the way the game plays. Just a really, really big fan of this game that I've had a bug wanting to play this again. So don't be surprised if you either see us or, as it were, hear us reviewing the game sooner rather than later and or doing a playthrough of it.
Well, it would be a look back because you and Tony have already done Automobile.
Fair enough, right?
Yep.
So that's Martin Wallace's Automobile. Next one on my list is the grandfather. Arguably, it's not the first, but it's the most widely recognized first worker placement game. And that's Kalis.
Yes.
Has to be on my list. Absolutely deserves to be here and is a classic for a reason. It is
mean.
Yeah, that's a good. It can be the other players controlling the provost and the way that mechanism works in the game. The game can be really brutal, or it could be a Nerf game.
It depends on the players.
And by Nerf, I mean, soft and spongy, right? Yeah, totally player dependent in that respect. And just an amazing game that has truly stood the test of time. And I'm very, very happy to have it on my list. So that's Kalis.
And that fell off of my list.
Oh, I won't judge. Maybe a little.
A little bit. My next one is 18 Dixie.
Wow, you got a lot of 18XX games on here.
I'm sorry.
You have more than I do.
I know.
All right, so 18 Dixie.
You've never played this.
I have not.
And the sheer amount of auctions rivals 1822.
Really?
Yes. There's so many. And it's so cool. It's so good.
I remember last time when you had this on your list, I remember seeing it at the Conclave, which is a local convention here in Denver. And looking at the operations flow chart, because normally it's just, okay, a stock round and then an OR or 2 or 3. And this it looked like a flow chart, like a yes-no diagram, right? Does it do this? Yes. Okay, go here. And I was like, I've never seen that before.
That's to control the auctions.
Okay, interesting.
Crazy.
Yeah, still have never played it. I would like to at some point.
It's a good one.
Yeah, you enjoy it, huh?
I did, and that's 18 Dixie. My next one is Cavum.
Yeah, this was a hard cut.
Oh, it's such a good game.
And I don't mean like hard cut, like it's out, that's it. I mean,
no, like it was difficult to cut.
Yeah, it really was. I think the reason. Well, here, why is it on your list of why is it on mine?
It's on mine because it plays so well at all counts, and because it's got that the mechanic of blowing up tunnels and stuff, of how people have woven their way in to get to the veins and everything. And I don't know of anything else that you can blow up or get rid of certain things and just strand people. I don't know of another one that I can think of anyway.
And it has kind of a route building a la like an Age of Steam type game, but with that player driven chaos that the dynamite causes and just ruins somebody's day, or it just gives them the freedom and the option to rebuild in a new way.
It depends on whether the glass is half full or half empty.
Exactly, right?
Yes, it does.
For me, really, really smitten with the game. I think the only thing that I'm not super thrilled with on this is at the end of the game with the auction, when you're selling or you're offering how much you're willing to sell gems back at the end of each round. For some reason, it just didn't sit 100% with me. And then the little catch-up mechanic at the very end almost seems like a cow's opinion. It seemed
moo.
So, yeah, but outside of those two little things, really, really enjoy this game. And I mean, I'm pretty sure you and I both rated it highly when we reviewed this.
Yeah, it's a good one. Let's have them.
The darkest game on my list is up next. Colonialism, published by Spielworks. This was the one that really kind of put Spielworks on the map for me and put it onto my radar. The theme on this is extremely dark if you actually stop and think about it. Right. So at its core, what it is the players are representing a nameless colonial power, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, which various ones out there it could have been. You have to go around to the various countries, exterminate the native population, and then essentially pillage the land of all of its resources.
But it's all cubes.
Yeah, it's dark, and I appreciate the fact that Scott and Uli were willing to take the risk on this game, and it doesn't shy away from it, and it doesn't disrespect in any way.
No.
And it's not a fun time, but it's an enjoyable game. The mechanisms of the game, and I appreciate the taking on a really dark theme like this, because this stuff really happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really like these quirky, risky, unique themes that are out there like this. And this just in, it's a really good game as well.
Yeah, it is. And another thing that I would mention is speaking of not shying away from things, they did not shy away from the art in this game. The cover is literally a ball and chain.
Right, which is
and
striking.
A choker. Yeah.
It's striking.
It makes you be like, what is this?
What is this? And that's exactly how it got onto my radar.
Yep.
I was like, what? So, yeah, colonialism. This next one is out of print and hard to get. Good news, it's coming back into print. And, yes, I know there's a big kerfuffle about it, but that's Container.
And that's on mine, too.
All right. Looking forward to seeing what the reprint, the jumbo size of everything. Do I think people are making a mountain out of a molehill? Yes. Am I looking forward to checking it out? Yes. Am I keeping my original edition with the custom heavy cardboard painted ships?
Yes.
But yeah, player-driven economy and auctions galore. Yes, please. Sign me up.
Always, yes, please. Evaluating the different
shipments.
Yes. Makes me want to pull my hair out. It is so hard for me. I cannot wrap my brain around it. Like, I've played this game for years and I still get confused as to how you want to get the stuff on your island. Like, my brain just won't work that way. I don't know why. And I've played it, I don't even know how many times.
I'll manufacture this, you buy it, and then I'll come load it onto my ship.
It's still
confusing. It's a really simple game mechanically. It's just there's a lot of depth and a lot of stuff to track.
That's true.
Yeah, good game. So that's Container.
My next one is Craftsman.
Also my next one. So, hey, that works out. Very cool. All right.
We actually matched on something. This one is by our friend Christoph Matuzik, and the tableau that you can build in this game is insanity. Like, the cards just keep going. Like, you need another table to put more on.
It's not that bad.
It's a really, really cool resource generating management, upgrading, conversion, all of that stuff.
Yep.
And it was one of the first games that we played where you had to plan one turn ahead, where you had to purchase the stuff that you wanted to build before you're able to.
On the turn before. Yeah. And that was the thing that really either turn people on or turn people off of the game.
Yep.
That one mechanism, like, oh, that's complexity for complexity's sake. No, it's just planning ahead. You need to have your raw materials before you can create whatever it is you're creating. Doesn't that make sense?
It does, but
have the plans ahead of time.
In most other games, it's not that way, though.
I agree, and this was not a landmark type game, but it was something that did something that we hadn't seen before, and it was a big game. I mean, it takes about an hour per player, give or take a little bit. And while not colorblind friendly as far as the color combinations on the cards, really good game outside of that.
Yes.
So, yeah, glad to see it's on both of our lists.
Definitely. It's Craftsman. My next one up is Dungeon Pets. It is a very difficult game masked in cuteness.
That's exactly it. Both Dungeon Pets and Dungeon Lords. So we're told. We haven't played Dungeon Lords yet, but Dungeon Pets. Oh, it's cute. Look at these cute little... Dude, that's a heavier game than it ever would, you would think.
It does not. You do not think it would be, and you don't think that handling poop is going to be that difficult. But in that game, it is. Yeah, it does pile up, and it makes a mess.
Yeah, not too many games have pet excrement in it as a resource.
No, it doesn't. But this one does, and it adds to its charm.
It does. Pretty cool game. A lot going on and a lot more. Not a game that I would want to learn again at the end of a game day.
No, that's a first game.
Yeah, which again, you wouldn't think so with the cute theme on it of, having to build the pets that are going to go into the dungeons.
Yeah.
However, yeah, really cool game.
Yeah. Very enjoyable.
It's something we need to review that.
We do. Very much so. And that's Dungeon Pets.
I don't know if I'm thinking controversial here or not, but there is a Golden Elephant Award winner in my top 50 here, but not in my top 20. Food Chain Magnate. Now, this could change on any given day, let's face it, right? However, when I was going through my list, I was like, how much am I excited to play a game again? Now, could that be because I've played it to death? Not to death, but played it over and over and over? 'Cause 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 over and over and I think there's some of that playing into this here.
Okay.
But Food Chain Magnate, definitely in my top 50 and will stay there forever, I imagine.
Yeah, it's on my top 50 as well, and I don't see it going anywhere. I don't see it leaving. It's just, and I talked about this in our last top 50. It's a very, very difficult game for me.
It's unforgiving.
Yes.
You have to. It's entirely possible to lose the game. At the on your very first turn,
Mm-hmm.
and this was the game that Jeroen said, "Well, if you can't lose the game on the first turn, why have a first turn?"
Exactly, and I completely understand where he's coming from. It's just, it's really hard.
And I think one of the things with the online implementation and everything else that Food Chain Magnate has, it's been played to death at this point on my end, to where I'm ready to kind of set it aside for a little bit and come back to it down the road.
Yeah.
But it absolutely deserves a spot on this list.
Yes. It should not go anywhere.
It's not. I mean, it won the 2014 Golden Elephant Award for a reason, right?
Exactly.
So, Food Chain Magnate.
Yes.
One of the biggest surprises or surprising additions to my list this year is a game from Fantasy Flight. What? However, once we played it, and we had a lot of people who said a lot of good things about this, and they asked us to do a live stream of it, and we did, then we ended up doing a review of this, and that's Forbidden Stars, 40K Universe game, which this is my first exposure to the 40K universe. I've seen it around and whatever, but I've never been interested in playing any of the games. Despite the theme, despite all the dice that you're going to be rolling in this game, heavy strategy game. Go back and listen to the review if you're scratching your head on this one. A shockingly good game that unfortunately is permanently out of print since Games Workshop and FFG went their separate ways. That said, absolutely worth hunting down to at least try the game, if not buy the game.
It's good.
And see if it's your cup of tea. Pretty cool space opera game here.
Yeah, it really is. It's not on my list, but it's a game that I went into not expecting to like at all, and I really like it.
Cool.
It's really good.
So, Forbidden Stars.
Well, staying in the same space type situation, my next one is Eclipse.
I am not surprised at all to hear that. Man, I haven't played Eclipse in 3 years, I don't think.
I don't think I have either, but it's not going anywhere because it is one of my favorite games ever. And
well, obviously it's on your top 50,
exactly.
right?
And I would love to get a game in at HeavyCon. Anybody, just listening, that could be arranged, but it's not only a fighting each other game, but it's a building your super ship, and it's the
tech trees and everything else.
It's
sure.
so good. So why don't we play it more often?
Forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hook this up.
Yeah,
I think it'd be
fun.
Cool to check out.
Yeah.
I might end up having to surprise you with some expansions for this as well.
Oh, shucks. Okay. That's Eclipse. My next one's Grand Austria Hotel, which Matt introduced us to.
I'm not surprised that this is on your list. I'll be honest, never even occurred to me to put it on here. It's similar weight and similar feel-ish. The gameplay is completely different, but I put it in the same category as a Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah, and I could see that. But it's always good to have at least 2 or 3 games that are, like that. And so I'm not going to discount a game and not have it on there just because one, it kind of fills a spot or fills a niche. In Grand Austria Hotel, you are filling rooms with people that you are serving food to. So after they get their food, then they'll go up and they'll go to bed or whatever. And the way that you get points is by filling either blocks of rooms or a full floor or things like that. And
dice placement and recipe fulfillment.
Which at recipe fulfillment, you got me there. You have me at that. So it's cool. I like the recipe fulfillment piece. I like the puzzle of figuring out how best to fill the rooms in the hotel, and that's just a good one.
I enjoy the dice placement aspect of it, although I have to say I only like this at 2 and 3 players. 4 players, it takes way too long for what it is. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Cool game, though.
Yeah, and that's Grand Austria Hotel.
My next one, Forged in Steel.
Dun, dun, dun.
This actually just made our top 6 gateway to heavier game list.
Spoiler.
Right. Yeah, my bad. Sorry. Listen to things in order, people. It's about the development of the city of Pueblo, Colorado, as a CDG, a card-driven game that has a whole lot of interaction. There is a fair bit of take that in this game. But I was really... When this Kickstarter dropped, this along with Hands in the Sea, I was much more interested in Hands in the Sea. And Don over at Game Night sent us or let us take a look at the prototype of this when he gave us both of these, that and Hands in the Sea. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever, Hands in the Sea. Let me go look at that. However, Forged in Steel is the one that has hung around the longest, which really surprised me. The gameplay, it's just, even though there's a lot of negative interaction in this game, i.e. take that, I feel like it's a fantastic jumping off point for a CDG, but also just a really good time with our group. I know Carmen over at Game Surplus is a really big fan of the game, and his group, pretty much most of the people that we've talked to really enjoy this game.
Yeah, especially the man in Essen that pulled you over and was like, you made me do this. And it was
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
So Forged in Steel, absolutely in my top 50. There are only a couple of Winsomes that made my list, but my first Winsome that I ever played still holds a true spot in my heart here, and that is Irish Gauge. First one, and still my favorite to this day, except for a game that I don't think of as a Winsome that started as a Winsome. More on that one later. But yeah, Irish Gauge, fantastic, simple rule set. I mean, the rules are on one-piece paper, front and back.
Just like Winsomes.
Yep. However, as far as Winsomes goes, I think Tom Russell just kind of dropped the mic, so to speak, when he designed this one. This is still, to this day, my favorite one, Irish Gauge. Really, really happy with this game. And desperate to find a copy. Yep, Irish Gauge. Want a copy of that.
Yeah, and I would like, to play it. I played it once I believe it was at the inaugural HeavyCon.
And that's it?
Oh, in our living room.
We need to remedy that.
We do.
All right, cool. So Irish Gauge.
My next one is Great Western Trail.
Enjoyable game. Not on my top 50.
Well, you have a right to be wrong. That's fine.
Okay, all right.
In Great Western Trail, you are riding the Great Western Trail and trying to ship cattle over to San Francisco. And and while you're doing it, you're placing your cowboys and your rail barons and your workers and everybody in spots and gathering victory points all the way up to San Francisco and blocking people off on the main board and just having all kinds of fun. It's collecting. I mean, what kind of a game could you not like that you collect cows? How can you not like that game?
They don't stink, so I will say that. No, I enjoy Great Western Trail. I feel like it's kind of in vogue to poo-poo on Great Western Trail, but I really enjoyed my plays of it.
Yeah.
Not ZOMG. I mean, it's not on my top 50, but I would say it's in my top 200 games for sure.
Right,
easy. Right. Yeah, an enjoyable game that I think Alexander Pfister did a great job.
Yes, he did.
The artwork on the box cover is a little disconcerting, the faces, but outside of that, I dig the game as well.
The faces are the same, just with different hair, and that's kind of like, what? But anyway, that's Great Western Trail.
One of the biggest drops on my list is up next, and that's going to be Keyflower. Kind of surprised me, but it kind of didn't at the same time, for the simple fact that Keyflower hasn't hit the table in a long time here. I would like to remedy that, but I love the fact that you have different color meeples in this game that essentially are different types of currency that you can bid with. And it's auctions upon tableau building, and then some more auctions, really with a little bit of resource conversion mixed in there. And I think this is Richard Breeze's second best game that he's designed. It just hasn't hit the table in forever, so that's why...
We played other key games, but not this one.
Right, and I think that's part of the reason why it's kind of slipped down my list a little bit, so I'm looking forward to getting it back to the table and actually reviewing it on the show. And then I'm curious to see if it still holds up for me. But I mean, it's still in my top 50. So
yeah, it's not like it completely dropped off.
Yeah,
and,
no.
Yeah, and I like also the different color meeples being different currency, and that you kind of need to make sure that you hide as best you can how many red meeples you have, so that you can, try to snake something away from somebody else. And all of the key games are really good. This one's not my favorite, but I do enjoy Keyflower.
Cool. Yep. So that's Keyflower. What you got?
Keeper.
Oh, hey. All right. the most recent Richard Breeze game.
Yes. The thing that is the kind of the driving force of me really liking the game is those flipping boards that
that's not you trying to be cute,
no,
but no,
not
they literally
boards.
they're you flip the boards.
Yeah, you flip the boards, and it's so cool.
Well, it's almost like, it almost reminds me of those little things that you would fold,
a
like
cootie
in grade
catcher.
Okay, is that what they're called?
That's what I called them. Yeah.
Okay, the little little square thing that you would have to you open up, you close it, and it folds this way, and then you
that's exactly what it
that's what it reminded me of. But however, really cool game. There are more resources in that game than any other game that I can think of. I think it's 18 or 19.
It rivals the Colonists.
Different resources. It's insane, but thoroughly enjoyable. I've really enjoyed all my plays of it.
It's a good one. It's a lot of fun, and I can't wait till we review it so that we can play it some more.
Cool.
And that's Keeper. Next up for me is Lignum.
Also next up on my list, so that works out really well.
That was a finalist for a Golden Elephant Award back in 2015.
Yes, and rightfully so. Alexander Huemer. Yes.
Yes. The game is really cool in that you can, once you have chopped down your wood, you can either use it immediately or you can let it age and get better quality. And the fact that on the main board that you can never go back.
It's a one direction path, so you can jump as far ahead as you want.
But your booty ain't going back any farther, and that can bite you a lot.
You can hurry up and get the stuff that you really desperately need, but it may come at the cost of passing up all this extra stuff to where somebody else who's just moseying on down the trail can I'll take that.
Do you want to be the rabbit or the turtle? Which one do you want to be?
And I like the game of chicken that's in that game, in a sense that you have to secretly claim cutting locations of the 6 that are on the board, and having to a little bit of gamemanship of, I know that you know that I know that you know that I'm going to go over there, which means I know you're not going to go there, so maybe I can go there because you know that I'm not going to go there, so I'll thwart you for that. And we joked when we reviewed the game and said it's planning the game. And there's a whole lot of that. And it stays on the table, or I should say it comes down onto the table every now and again, which is a good thing here. Just through the churn and burn as we go through these different games. Yeah. It's one that's staying in our collection, and I'm glad it found a second printing with Capstone.
Me too. And that is Lignum.
So since you took my next one, we'll go with a recent release from 2017. Lisboa. Probably not a big surprise. We've reviewed the game. I think we live streamed it 3 different times,
including our very first one.
Exactly. We had the prototype, and then we had a nicer version of the prototype. Then we had the final one. Plus, we had in the studio. Yeah. So we thought that was a good idea.
Kind of grew with us.
Not only that, but I'll be honest, pretty cool that we have our first promo.
Yeah, that's
out there
really cool.
That's in the game. But yeah, as Vital says, there's only 3 things you do on your turn. You play a card, you do an action, you draw a card. No, it's really simple. Or not.
No, it's really not. Lisboa is so difficult. There's so many things going on. There's so many plates that you need to juggle in the air that it's not on my list because it's so incredibly difficult for me. It's
interesting.
It may not be for other people, but for me, it makes my eyes cross and my brain melt. Like Clinic.
Which I assume is not on here yet. But I am curious to get that back to play it again.
I am too. Just, play it some more and see if my brain function can improve.
So yeah, Lisboa, a worthy addition to my top 50. So kudos to VTOL and Eagle Griffin for this one. So, Lisboa. Next up, I have Maria. 3-player. Yes, you can play it with 2, but it's a 3-player Waro hybrid Euro and war game, to where one player is schizophrenic, to where half the game teamed up with one player and the other half of a turn teamed up with the other player. And it's a really cool juggling match and push and pull aspect. And the way the combat works is you use a regular deck of cards, sort of, to where there's suits on the board, and where the battle takes place dictates what suits can be played in a given battle. So the logistics and the tactical nature of the battles really comes into play with what suits do I have? Do I want to feint? Do I want to, oh, wait, I didn't expect you to attack me here. I don't have a lot of cards, so do I just tactically lose, and take a minor loss, or do I go gung-ho and blow through a whole bunch of cards? There's a lot of decisions, even though it's for a war game, extremely simple rule set, that every time we played it for the game of the month, I enjoyed more and more, and I really want to get this played again.
The fact of the part of Maria that I like the best is the card play, as you mentioned, and moving on the board. Whenever you stop, you have to pay attention to what suit you're in, because like you said, if somebody comes and attacks you that you're not expecting and you don't have any of that suit, you're dead.
It won't end well for you.
No.
And whether or not you're on a main road or a secondary road,
depends on how fast you can go.
Yeah, it's a lot of things to juggle, but thoroughly enjoyable game. Maria.
Next up for me is Masters of Venice.
Also next up for me.
Wow, look at that. We reviewed Masters of Venice quite a while ago. I don't even think I was on the show yet. And it is a little fiddly.
Oh, no. I think this is up there as one of the fiddliest games, period.
But it's worth it.
100% it's worth it.
This would be a perfect app. I believe we have talked about that in the past, that for the different commodities to be just figured for you so you don't have to move the pegs around. But I enjoy the game, and it's super cheap.
I actually don't mind the fiddliness with the pegs for the investing and divesting or selling of shares that takes place in the game, for the simple fact that it's a physical, you physically adjust the value of individual shares, and there's something tactile about that I really enjoy, and it's almost like you can feel the ebb and flow of the value of things in the game that I really, really enjoy. The artwork can't stand.
Oh, it's awful.
However, the gameplay totally makes the unappealing board art as well as the uber fiddly nature of the game, and with the pegboards for the values of the shares, totally worth it to me. So it will perpetually stay on my top 50 list.
Yeah, it will for mine as well. And for the gameplay to be so good that we can look past the two major things is awesome. And that's Masters of Venice. Next up for me is Neue Heimat, which is the meanest auction game ever.
Yep. And some people might be like, wait a minute, I thought you said no filler.
It's not a filler.
I don't think it is, because I would certainly go to a game day to play a series of games of Neue Heimat.
It's like a super mean game that looks like a bunch of kids' toys. It looks like blocks, and it will make you question your friends whether you want to stay friends with them or not. It's brutal. It's brutal.
It doesn't, and the thing is, the brutality isn't obvious, and it's not in your face. It's very subtle, like, oh wow, why'd you do that? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Really? You didn't have to, really? That type thing. And it's getting reprinted this year.
Woo!
It's going to be available in a handful of months, so I'm really excited to see this.
Me too.
And I do not think it's going to be a massive commercial success, and I'm okay with that. But this is a game that there is a big enough market for, I think, nowadays, that it warrants getting another printing. I'm really looking forward to that.
If you like auction games, this is a must-have.
It really is. Just total brutality. all the way around.
And amazingness. That's Neue
Heimat. Obviously, that was on my list. But let me backtrack one here real quick, and that is Millennium Blades, a game I have no reason to like, other than it's just amazingly fun. I've talked about this numerous times, the things that I don't like about the game, yet in spite of all those things, there's something just absolutely compelling and fun about this game that I can't not have it on my list.
Yeah.
It is a meta game about playing as a player who plays in CCGs. So much I shouldn't like.
But it's so cool.
Yep. Golden Elephant Award finalist to the shock of many a person in 2016. Yeah. So big ups to Brad and Level 99 Games for taking a game that might not have a whole lot of commercial appeal, but I'm glad he made the game that it's just an absolute blast to play.
That is the best way to put it. Like, this is, if you want to sit down for a few hours and just have an absolute ball, this is the game you want to play.
Yeah, Millennium Blades. Check it out. Next up is a lot of people's favorite or best two-player game out there, period. Now, I'm not saying definitively that's the case. I'm just saying there's a number of people that feel that way. Polis, the fight for the hegemony. Hard, really easy to kill yourself, really easy to not plan well and to do very poorly. And I like games where I struggle like that. It's kind of Civ-ish meets war game. So kind of another one of those Waro hybrid games that got picked up by Mercury Games. They did a second printing of it, and another that in 2018 I desperately want to get to the table enough to review.
Yeah, I've never even played it, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing, because it's been on your it's been on top 50 lists or top lists every time.
Yep. So Polis, the fight for the hegemony. Check it out, guys and gals.
Next up for me is New Amsterdam. I feel like it is one of the quintessential 5-player games.
Yes, I would agree with that, in that we only play it with 5 players. There are 2 games that come to mind that's the case, this and one other that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. And it is another brutal auction game at 5 players. It's been on my list, isn't this time, because the last couple times we've played it, I felt like it kind of overstayed its welcome a little bit for me.
Okay.
So that's why I took it off the list. But that said, I would happily play it again to see if that's a me issue, or if I think, oh, wait, yeah, no, that is the case.
Right. Or if that was, I understand that. It's just, it's, like you said, it's another brutal auction game. It's another kind of set collection game. It's a great one. And that's New Amsterdam.
Some folks in a herd like to joke that this next game is actually going to be the baseline for midweight Euro. It's going to be the Rococo scale, since I feel like that is the quintessential midweight Euro.
Yeah.
With just an offbeat theme that I dig. Let's go make dresses and men's waistcoats and all that for, I think it's Louis XIV's ball. And yeah, I dig it. There's something about the different take on a pseudo deck builder that it has. It has the little jewelry expansion, which adds enough in there to make it worth it.
Recipe fulfillment. It's actually the next one on my list as well. It's definitely not a quote unquote normal theme, and I think that's what makes it cool. It makes
that's part of the appeal, for
kind
sure.
Kind of quirky, making dresses and stuff, and it's just, I really like it. It's cool.
It's just a cool mix of mechanisms that we enjoy. It's a perfect school night game, and it's just one that it doesn't have a whole lot of rules overhead, and it's an enjoyable weeknight game type thing, and that's why that's going to be on my list until something does what it does better. And as it is right now,
it's Rococo.
Yep, Rococo. If you've listened to the show for any length of time, you know my affinity for block war games, and be hard-pressed to beat for a block war game, Sekigahara. Cool theme, aesthetically pleasing, relatively simple yet deep card play and diceless combat. And I talked about this in a recent pod blast. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Yeah, Sekigahara, there's a lot to like. If you are interested in getting your feet wet in either war games or block war games, I would recommend checking it out.
Yeah, it's perfect. And especially if you like Japanese history, it's like perfect for you.
Sekigahara.
Next up for me is St. Petersburg. This is another delightfully wonderful auction game.
Another solid midweight Euro that fits a niche here that is a classic.
It is a classic, and the addition of with the new edition having the like grocery market type thing with the chickens and the apples and stuff, that adds another level to where the aristocrats are not a make or break thing to win the game, which always is good. It's always good to have more than one path. So
totally agree. Yeah, the second edition with the market, I think, is a welcome addition to an already really solid game that I see no reason to play without the market at this point. It got bumped off this list, but it wasn't done in anger. It's still way, way up there for me. So yeah, St. Petersburg, excellent choice.
Yes.
Off the Beaten Path is definitely going to be the name of the game for this next one for me. I've known about this game my entire life. I finally played it for the first time at HeavyCon, and that's Stratomatic Baseball. We're baseball nuts. We're big baseball nerds. Like stats. I enjoy simulation. I used to, or not so much anymore, just due to time. Love out of the park baseball on the PC, and this kind of scratches a similar itch in that in a given game, you never know what's going to happen. The improbable can happen.
Yeah.
But over the course of a season, as they say, player's probably going to look a lot like what the back of their baseball card says, stat-wise. However, the stories and the theater of the mind that comes to the fore with this game. When Jim was here from Punch and Cardboard, it was late the last night before he left. We stayed up late one night, and we had his Cubs versus my Reds, last year's teams. There's no way that I should have had a snowball's chance to win that game. But it was thematic. I was dancing around the table. I was giving phantom high fives to my teammates after my boys won it in extra innings. It was awesome. It was such a memorable experience that sealed it for me, and wanting to get more and more into the game. We've even discussed how to do a live stream of this. We got to do it because it's going to be awesome. It's if you're a fan of baseball and you enjoy stats, there's a lot of die rolling and there's randomness you would think, but it's mitigated by the way the dice are implemented.
Yeah.
Just a fantastic game. Stratomatic Baseball, really, really big fan.
Yeah. My next one is Trajan.
Which I was surprised when I was going through my list. I was like, oh yeah, I don't know that I've played it since the last time we did this list.
Oh, wow.
So I don't think it was on last year's either. So that kind of makes sense. It's just kind of
faded away
for me, although we still own it.
We still own it, and it's one of the last Felds that we both really enjoy. And I think it's because it's not, it's a difficult game to play with the Mancala and everything. It's not it's not Feld's normal point salad. You have to work at it to get points.
Oh, you're saying it's a tougher point salad, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll buy that. It's a bunch of mini games kind of mixed in, all set around that Mancala mechanic that I struggle with, and I enjoy the struggle of having to work my way through. Okay, I need to put this here so that in 3 turns, 1, 2, I'll be able to do it. Yes, that's what I'm doing right here. And I enjoy the challenge. We need to get that to the table at some point.
We need to get a lot of stuff to the table, but especially this one. That's Trajan. Next up for me is Zolkin. The mechanic of the moving of the wheels is,
and the time that represents.
That's awesome. you have to, burn through the woods before you can get to the corn and certain things, and that angers the gods, and that makes things more difficult for you, and just the layer upon layer upon layer of stuff that you have to keep track of and have to do in order to even have a chance in Tzolk'in. That difficulty factor keeps it on my list.
I remember when we first played this game how much of a brain burn this was for me, because we played this early on in our gaming careers.
Yeah.
And I remember coming out of the studio when it was downstairs and wanting to unwind with the game. Somebody suggested Tzolk'in, and I'm like, wow, I haven't played that forever. Yeah, let's do that. And how it was a decompression game for me now
instead of a winding up game.
Right. And that was eye-opening at how far I had come from. Don't get me wrong. It's still got a lot of meaty decisions, and it's still a game in which you have to put a fair bit of brain power into planning out your turns, for the simple fact that you either have to place workers or remove workers. You can't do both, and you can't do neither. Can't do neither. Double negative. Yeah, whatever. Move on. That said, it's a lot more intuitive to me nowadays than it used to be, which really was an eye-opening experience and a real cool experience. So I'll always remember that, and it still hits the table from time to time for us here.
It does, and I just feel like it just shows the growth of us as gamers, as the fact that this used to be one of the most difficult games, and now we're like, well, let's just play Tzolk'in. It's, 8:30 on a Saturday, sure.
Right, yeah, I think that's cool.
Completely different than how it used to be.
And we still have to really tackle into the expansion.
We do?
Yep.
I've only played that once. I don't think you've ever played it.
I haven't ever.
All right, and that's Tzolk'in.
So my last two that I can talk about, we've skipped some because they're higher on each other's lists. But my last two, Twilight Struggle. We do have the collector's edition downstairs for a reason, because you and I are both really big fans of the game, even though we haven't played it a ton. And we're never, I realize this, that much like a game like Tigris and Euphrates or ASL or some of these games that really reward dedicated study, even I would make a case for 18XX.
Oh, yeah.
This is a game that absolutely rewards dedicated study of learning the cards and how, I want to hold this back in case. I mean, the tournament level play is amazing. I will never be at that level, and I'm okay with that. I can play the game and just play it as a very tactical game, even though that's not playing it at its best. I can appreciate it and still enjoy the play. And that's
perfectly fine.
And that's exactly what I do with Twilight Struggle. And I think it is, there was a reason it was number one for the longest time on BGG.
It was one of the very first games we purchased.
Yep, because, people pay attention to lists like that, right? It was number one. So when we were getting started, we're like,
then we need that.
Well, dude, we need that. Plus, it's Cold War, which you and I both really dig. And the gameplay, while super deep, isn't super complex. There's enough there that you're going to have to reference the rule book here and there, as if it's not something that you're putting out on regular rotation. But that said, it's one that I would like to be able to stream on the show at some point and eventually review it, even though it's one that intimidates the hell out of me to review it, because there is that aspect of, there are experts at that game that I'm like, I will do the best I can, but I'm just never going to get to that level.
And that's perfectly fine. Like I said, it's not on my list because I haven't played it enough, but I want to.
Okay, cool. Sure. So Twilight Struggle. And last up is U.S. Civil War, War Game by GMT. Gorgeous map. A low counter density hex encounter war game set on the Civil War. And I never really was terribly big on Civil War time period for war games. But when your co-host at the time, former co-host now, Tony, is an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to the Civil War.
His knowledge is insane.
Playing it with him and hearing about why our general is rated as he is, and it really made me appreciate the game a whole lot more, plus listening to various other history podcasts about the Civil War.
And we went to Gettysburg.
And going to Gettysburg, absolutely love this game. And as I said, gorgeous map on the table. low counter density, cool card play, lot to like, U.S. Civil War.
And the last one I can talk about is Village. I feel like that it needs to be played with the expansion, the port.
Which one? The port expansion?
Yeah.
I don't know that it has to, but it's enhanced by it.
It's very much enhanced. The time mechanic of killing off your people, I remember the very first time you told me that that's what was going on. I was like, what? Like, I don't want to kill people. You know, I was so freaked out by it. But, I mean, it makes sense. You know, you're just generation after generation.
Exactly, right.
And that piece of trying to figure out whether you want to kill this one or keep this one alive and just...
Maybe they'll make it into the Chronicle and be one of the famous people of the village, i.e. score you points at the end of the game. It's really cool and really good. Really good, another good school night game. Arguably, and Tony and I argued about this when we did the worker placement episode about whether or not Village is kind of a reverse worker placement in that you're pulling cubes off the board that allow you actions. So when there's no more cubes for a given action, you can no longer take that action. I think that's pretty cool. And that's another one that I feel like needs to stay more in the rotation than it has been.
Yep, that's Village.
And thus, we have reached the top 20.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, so that from here out, they're numbered. So here we go. You started that, I'll start this one. So my number 20 has fallen since last year, but is unlikely to fall off the top 20. Democker.
Mm-hmm.
So earlier you had mentioned one of the quintessential 5-player games in New Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Democker is a 5-player game.
Yes.
The end. I don't care what the box says. 5-player game.
I have never played it with less than 5, and I couldn't imagine doing so.
No, it's the game's likely gonna take you between 5 and 6 hours. Board Games with Scott did an amazing job of teaching the game, and eventually we're going to live stream the game. We've reviewed the game. It's one of my Hall of Fame games. Unfortunately, it's just not hit. It doesn't hit the table a lot. It's a 6-hour game.
Yeah,
I can realize that. Plus, anybody I want to play this with, I make watch Scott's video before we sit down to play it. This way we don't have to have an extended rules teach. But that said, it's a classic. It's getting reprinted, even though it's getting updated. I don't exactly know what's going to be with that. I'm a little apprehensive, but also extremely excited that it's going to be available again. So yeah, Democker. Big favorite of mine.
It's not in my top 20, but it was in my top 50.
All right.
My number 20 is 1830.
Nope, not on mine.
Yeah, you're not a fan of this game because of the map. I don't mind the map. I enjoy the game because it's one of those where I can do like a pickup game of 1830 and be perfectly comfortable with it. And I can just grab 2 or 3 people that we know how to play it. We sit down and we play, and then we get up and we're done. It's a familiar game. It's very familiar. It just feels comfortable. Very much.
And I know a lot of people like the limited tile set that 1830 has, and using that as a tool to hurt your opponents, and to there's an aspect of skill in learning the tile sets that I just don't want to. It's that simple. Sure. And does that disqualify me from enjoying 18XX?
No.
Of course not. But yeah, it's just, will I play it and try it more in the future? Absolutely. But is it ever going to be one of my favorite 18XXs? Probably not. And you know what? The hobby's okay with that, and I'm okay with it. Everyone drives home in a choo-choo.
Whoop, whoop. And that's 1830. My number 19 is Small City by Albin Viard,
which is in my top 50 for sure.
The adjacency in the game, the way that you pick your workers, being able to send your workers to other people's towns and pollute.
That's exactly what they're doing.
That's all they're doing.
I'd much rather a lot like Antiquity, in that I would much rather pollute in your area than in mine.
Absolutely.
But City Builder, yes, please.
An adjacency, and this can only go next to this as long as you have this over here, and it's you have to have a player aid with it to be able to play it competently at all. But it's a really, really good game, and we really enjoy it. And that's Small City.
Yep, big fan. My number 19, Wildcatters. I guess the second edition, if you only could get the first edition, that'd be okay too in my book. Aesthetically, one of the most gorgeous games I've ever seen on the table, just eye appeal of it, and the interactions of the deliveries and how the drilling for the oil and everything else that goes into it. I have loved the game from the very first time I played it. I had to import this game directly from RAS Games
She did.
over in the Netherlands, and very happy to have been able to play a part in all of that evolution for the second edition. And yeah, I love the game. Absolutely love the game. So my number 19, Wildcatters.
And that was in my top 50 as well.
My 18 we'll talk about here in just a couple of minutes. It's higher on Amanda's list.
My number 18 we'll talk about here in just a little bit. It's higher on Edward's list.
All right. So now, moving to my number 17, Vinhos. The highest Vital Lacerda, my favorite Vital Lacerda game of all time so far. We only play and only really enjoy the 2010 rule set, whether it's in the original edition or whether it's in the Eagle Griffin Deluxe edition of the game. But that said, for so few actions that you have in a game, the fact that you only have 12 actions, base actions in this game, and you're asked to do so much with so few actions that it plays great across the entire player count, and the production quality in the second edition is amazing. Fantastic artwork by Ian O'Toole. Yeah, I've loved Vinhos from the first time I played it, and that hasn't waned at all. So here we are with my number 17, Vinhos.
And it's in my top 50 as well.
You a big fan of it still?
I am. I remember the very first time that the board was sat down in front of me, I remember looking at the middle of it thinking, I am never going to understand how to play this game. I remember being so overwhelmed, which that helps me understand that I will probably be able to play other games later on.
Oh, that's cool. All right, good deal.
My number 17 is Tramways.
Which was in my top 50 as well, and a Golden Elephant Award finalist and the People's Choice Award winner in 2016.
Yes, it was. I enjoy Tramways because it's another kind of deck buildery type game. The auction is weird and crazy and awesome. And the fact that it's a platform for more maps to be made. It's not just the maps that came in the box. There's expansion maps, and there's a heavy cardboard map, and there's it's not just static. This is what you're going to play. This is all you're ever going to be able to play. The end.
Built off the bones that is Age of Steam, I think Alban VR did an amazing job designing and developing this game, where he takes a new twist on the auction mechanism and incorporates that deck building, like you said, that it is a really hard game that I struggle with. I thoroughly enjoy, but I struggle with it, which I tend to like games that I struggle in.
Yeah, you do.
And there's a reason it's in both of our top 50s.
That's right. And that's my number 17, Tramways. My number 16 was your number 18.
Yep.
Indonesia.
Yep. Splatter Classic. Mergers. Yo, dog.
Yeah.
I'm still amazed that no other game has taken the merger mechanic that is in Indonesia and done it in a different way, or even just straight taken it and used it in a different game. Blows me away that this has never happened. The only reason this is 18 for me and not higher on my list is whether it's first edition, second edition, doesn't matter. The operations aspect of the game borders on tedious and overwhelmingly fiddly, which I don't mind the fiddly. It's the tedious part that I'm like, eh.
The second edition does help with that, in that it's not chits that you're trying to mess with. It's, the bigger pieces of wood, which that was another kerfuffle.
Yeah, with the oversized wood pieces.
But it really honestly helps because it's a lot easier to see where everything is, or whatever. One thing that's kind of crazy about Indonesia is that the more players, the faster it goes, which is kind of counterintuitive to most games.
But the fact that the game doesn't scale as far as the number of companies, more players, the companies go quicker, the ages go quicker, the game ends quicker.
Right.
So it tends to be about a 3-hour game with 5 players, where it's a 5-hour game with 3 players.
Right.
Give or take a little bit, depending on your group, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But amazing economic and logistics game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Indonesia does a really, really amazing job at what those things are.
Yes, it does. That was my number 16.
And my number 18, Indonesia. So my number 16 was a big oversight on both of our lists from last year, or last time we did this. How did we not have Ora et Labora on here?
I don't know that we'd played it.
Oh, I know I had.
Okay. I don't know then.
I just dropped the ball. I think part of the reason, so Ora et Labora, one of Uwe Rosenberg's classics back when he was designing games that I enjoyed more.
Right.
The only thing that limits Ora et Labora, in my opinion, and I'm desperate to have fixed, is more variety in the cards. Right now, there's Ireland and there's France. And those are the 2 versions of the game that you can play. Thoroughly enjoy the game. Even with the limited card choices, and because all the cards are used in each game, depending on which half, whether it's Ireland or France. Even in spite of that, still in my top 20, amazing game. The adjacency, the resource conversion, just a fantastic implementation of this. And every single time it comes to the table, we're like, we need to play this more.
Every single time. It was in my top 50. And again, it's just a classic Uwe. You know that it's Uwe just by looking at it. And it's a really good one. Really good one.
Not one that we ever have trouble getting to the table here with this group.
Especially if Brian's around.
Yeah, for sure. So that's my number 16, Ora et Labora. My number 15, PAX Renaissance, is the only PAX game that's on this list. And PAX Renaissance has eclipsed PAX Porfiriana as far as my favorite of the PAX series. Mm-hmm. Now, PAX Premier, I don't have enough experience with yet, so that's why that isn't in the conversation as of yet. But PAX Renaissance ranks up there with An Infamous Traffic for me as the most opaque, hard to understand why and what I'm trying to do in the game. But once it clicks, it tells an amazing story of the history of that time period. And it can play in as quick as 45 minutes, which is amazing to me. Just fantastic, amazing game. PAX Renaissance, my number 15.
It was not on my list. And I also was not included in the review because I just did not feel comfortable doing it. Because it never clicked for me.
Okay, fair enough.
My number 15 is Shipyard. This was also mentioned in another podcast that we cannot name, or podblast that we cannot name. That we
did recently.
Yes.
It's in my top 50 as well. And this will forever be a special place in my heart as episode 0, our test episode.
When it was weighted cardboard.
For the show, yes.
This game always reminds me of Sweater Mike because he loves Shipyard. I enjoy the building aspect of it, and I enjoy the trying to figure out the best placement for your captains and for your cannons and your army men and I always want to try to make the biggest ship possible, and that's never a good idea, but I continue to do it anyway.
You're consistent.
I am. And it's just it's fun. It's a little fiddly, but I don't care because I have so much fun playing it.
Yeah, Shipyard's a heavy rondel. I think there's 5 or 6 rondels in this game, and it's all about building and creating these ships, taking them out on their shakedown cruises, and scoring points for the ships that you build. And then everybody has secret contracts. You can play with open contracts, whichever. But yeah, just a really, really cool turn order mechanism in this game as well. I think this is Vladimir Suchi's absolute best game that he has designed. Really big fan of Shipyard.
And that's my number 15. My number 14 is Roads and Boats, the ultimate logistics game.
Yeah, it's. I hear that FedEx and UPS both require you to be proficient in this game as part of the interview process. Also in my top 50, not in my top 20, though.
I absolutely adore logistics games, and this one is so difficult for me because not only are you getting your paths ready to go and all of those things, but you're having to make sure that no one steals your stuff and that you don't run out of geese and that you don't run out of this and that, and just the level upon level upon level of stuff that you have to take into consideration have to remember is incredible.
The most important thing to remember, don't spend your last piece of wood.
That's in a couple more Slaughter games too.
I'm noticing a theme here. Yeah, wood's important.
Yeah, that should be like on the bottom of every box. Wood is important.
Right. But yeah, Roads and Boats seriously is the king, queen, and joker of logistics games. Mm-hmm. And fiddly beyond measure, but totally worth it. Fantastic game.
Yeah. And that's my number 14, Roads and Boats.
Next up, at number 14, for me, Three Kingdoms Redux. Arguably the best 3-player Euro in existence.
Yes.
The only downside to the game is...
It's 3 players.
It's 3 players, exactly. Christina and Youster did an amazing job of designing and developing and taking a really good theme and implementing it on top of finely balanced 3-player game in which you don't have the same problems or the common problems in 3-player games, whereas if you and I are fighting, the third player who's not involved then benefits off of that, or 2 players can't gang up on one. There's none of that. It's designed to where that's impossible. But the way it incorporates the theme, has amazing artwork, and a fantastic bidding system, so it's worker placement with bidding. Yes, please. Cannot get enough of this. And yes, it does have a sentimental place in my heart as being our first ever review copy.
Yes.
Back when we were so tiny. So yeah, really, still, we just got this game back to the table within the last couple weeks. It was me, Kleiker, and
Jerry,
and had an amazing time. It was Jerry's first time playing it. Every time Kleiker comes over, he's like, "Hey, can we play Three Kingdoms?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's bust it out." So we played it, and all 3 of us were like, yeah, this is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really, really good game. It was in my top 50, but not my top 20.
All right, so that's my number 14, Three Kingdoms Redux.
My number 13, we will talk about a little later. My number 12 is Kanban. This is my favorite Vitalis.
Okay, all right. It fell off my top 50, but still is definitely up there. The most intimidating board in the history of board games. Yes,
again, another board where I remember the first time I looked at it, like, what? I was so terrified.
Every time it comes out, every time we break it out, I look at the board and I'm like, ooh, oh wait, no, it's not that hard.
Yeah, it looks terrifying, but once everything's in its own little area and it's not big of a deal.
It makes total sense once you can see the picture through the noise.
Yes, exactly. You don't want to make Sandra angry. No one wants to make Sandra angry. And building cars is awesome. Building up your shop and building up your seats around the conference table and all the things that you have to do in order to succeed in the game. There's many things because it's a Lacerda.
But all these things that you're doing, one worker.
Yes, you have one.
Move one worker, do something, lay down your worker. Right, Vital?
If only you had another one, that would make it so much easier. But that's my number 12, Kanban.
My number 13 is the inaugural Golden Elephant Award winner, Madeira. This still finds its way onto our table from time to time, and every time I remember exactly why it won the award the year it did. I think the amount of forward thinking that's required in this game still taxes my brain and still makes me struggle, and finding the switch on when between I don't mind acquiring pirates. Okay, a few more is fine. Okay, oh wait, I better start getting rid of these or else I'm going to pay the price and be out of the game come the end of the game. And that balance of when to flip that switch, as well as the amount of forward thinking and planning that's required in this game, still to this day one of my favorites. My number 13.
It was in my top 50.
Madeira. Next up, number 12 is a game that I can never get to the table with this group. I can only play it at conventions because most of this group here at HCHQ is just flat out wrong. And that's Richard Breeze's best game, Reef Encounter.
Huh.
So we have an agreement that if and when Amanda ever becomes full-time, that's the first game we stream.
Yes, because I don't like the game.
And we will review it soon thereafter.
Yep.
Hint, hint, please, for my sake, please. So Reef Encounter is a abstract with a funky underwater theme with shrimp with googly eyes, and that helps, I would hope, to get it to the table. Doesn't work. The idea of you're growing your reef only to be able to use your fish to be able to feed on a bigger reef, but as it grows, it makes for a bigger target for your opponents to come and snatch it away from you. It's quirky, it's difficult, and it's hard to time and play well. And it's one that I constantly struggle at because I can't get it to the table with any kind of regularity. But it's still one of my all-time favorite games. Obviously, it's number 12 on my list, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably not on Amanda's list anywhere.
That would be correct, yeah.
Right. So my number 12, Reef Encounter.
My number 11 is The Colonists. This is the game that Uwe Rosenberg wishes he would
or we wish he had, or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
whatever. This game is so interesting in that you can either play all of the eras, you can start right in the middle of the game, you can only play one era. It's basically 4 games in one because you can
very modular in that respect, yeah.
I really enjoy that aspect of it.
Runner-up but one of the finalists for the 2016 Golden Elephant Award. Interestingly enough, I was looking at the list. This is the only one that's not in my top 50. I don't think it's Burnout. I think it's more or less, I still really enjoy the game, but I don't ever find myself clamoring to play it anymore at this point. Now, I'm not saying that I wouldn't, but I found that really, really interesting. When I was going through and making this list. I was like, oh, The Colonists, I don't know if I really want to. So that's kind of why it misses on my list.
And that's fair. It's very fiddly to set up. There's so much stuff, but it's worth it in my mind. Not for a 2-player game because it literally feels like you play it for about 20 minutes. You don't, but it goes so fast that I don't know that it's worth getting out all of the stuff for it. But you can get a 2, a 3, or 4-player epic game going on. Takes your whole Saturday. Awesome. And that is my number 11, The Colonists. My number 10 is Dominion.
Which it's not on mine, but I'm actually enjoying more and more as I progress into the hobby. So I burn out on it and then wanted nothing to do with it. And now I'm like, yeah, I kind of enjoy that, even though I am horrible at that game.
You're getting better. It's just the granddaddy of deck builders and of
that aren't CCGs a la Magic, right?
Right. And there's like 14 gajillion expansions, and you can mix and match as you want, and you can just dig. Like Sweater Mike has every expansion they're all in different bags, and he has this gigantic tub, and you just go fishing and you dig for how many ever decks you want to play with, and then he sets it all up and you play. And that's one of my favorite things to do is to just sit around and play Dominion over and over and over again. It's so much fun.
Rightfully so in your top 10 then, yeah?
Yeah, that's my top 10 game. My number 10, Dominion.
For me, my number 11 is Amanda's number 18, The Great Zimbabwe. Also on a recent podcast, or Pod Blast. So The Great Zimbabwe, another logistics game, pick up and deliver route building with special player powers that adjusts the difficulty of you being able to trigger the end of the game or win the game. It moves your victory point condition, which I think is pretty cool. You don't see that a whole lot.
No.
It has a really exciting distribution of wealth for the turn order auction at the very beginning, and then the theme in and of itself. I mean, you're an African tribe or various African tribes monotheistic and you can worship a certain god. But again, the more powerful it is, the more victory points that's going to quote unquote cost you.
Mm-hmm.
So it uses victory points as a form of currency. Every splatter is completely different from every other splatter. Yeah. And this is definitely, on any given day, this could be argued to be my favorite splatter of them all. Plays in 90 minutes. Awesome jumping in point for getting into this type of game. Yeah, I absolutely love the Great Zimbabwe.
Yeah, again, logistics and me get along real well. I really enjoy the Great Zimbabwe. The distribution of wealth is one of the coolest aspects of it, I feel like, because you never see that. It's just another great one. That was my number 18.
And my number 11, TGZ. So welcome to my top 10, y'all. But I can't talk about it yet because it's higher on Amanda's list.
And my number 9 is higher on Edward's list. My number 8 is Terraforming Mars.
Didn't make my top 50, but it's a game that I still enjoy playing. We've played the hell out of this game.
Yeah, and I am not tired of it yet, which I feel like that is a sign of a game that should be in my top 10 because it's just another building of a tableau, and I love doing that. I love having 5,000 cards in front of me and getting stuff for free because I have so many discounts and building forests and building oceans and building it's just so good. I just love Terraforming Mars.
All right. Tell folks how you really feel about it. And this game has an impressive set of legs on it in that every convention we go to, we constantly see it all over the place. And they keep coming out with different expansions, which I don't blame them. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But yeah, it's definitely one of the it seems modern classics in a sense that everybody seems to be enjoying it and just playing the hell out of it. So yeah, I enjoyed the game. Terraforming Mars.
My number 8.
My number 9. Amanda's number 13. The second highest Uwe Rosenberg game on my list, La Havre. 2 options on your turn. Take an offer or move your worker, go do something at a building. That's all there is. Obviously, there's a lot more layers to it, and this is one of the go-to games for me for bringing new players into the hobby.
Yes.
I feel like La Havre does an amazing job of making itself as simple as you want it to be or as deep as you want it to be, and the game changes every game based on the order in which the buildings are going to come out. Simple, yet deep. Sign me up.
Yeah, and it plays well it even plays solo. It plays at every player count very well. Maybe might overstay its welcome a little bit at higher player counts, but it's still a great gateway game. It's a great game to play even if you've played it 100 times. It's a classic.
Yep. La Havre, my number 9.
And my number 13.
Which brings us to my number 8, which is the 2014 Golden Elephant Award. I think I said Food Chain was 2014 last year. Or earlier. Nope, it's 2015. Yeah. My bad. So this one is the 2014 Golden Elephant Award winner, and that's Arkwright, the classic from Stefan Riesthaus and published by Spielworks/Capstone. And actually getting a reprint later on this year.
Very nice.
So very cool to see. Building and running factories, creating and managing demand, and fighting with other players, business fighting on that demand and the quality that is your products that you're producing makes this a very difficult but rewarding game every single time I play it.
Yeah, and this is my number 7. Figuring out when it's best to flip that switch, like you were talking about earlier with Madeira and Pirates, flipping the switch on when you need to stop devaluing yourself and your business. And
by shipping goods and making a whole lot of money, devaluing your shares so you can then buy a bunch and then...
But figuring out the exact moment when to do that, it's a very fine balance and very difficult.
And it's a moving target because that depends on what the other players are going to be doing.
Yes.
So, yeah. My number 8.
My number 7.
And a all-time classic as far as we're concerned, Arkwright.
My number 6 is Castles of Burgundy. This game it will always have a special place in my heart because I've always loved Castles of Burgundy.
And I couldn't talk about it earlier. This is the one that when I went through my list and I had 21 on my list and I was like, really? Like for my top 20. And I was like, sentimentally, I want to keep this in my top 20, but I was like, I can't cut any of the others that are in here. All right, so this is my number 21.
Right.
It's our game, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's the game that you and I like to play by ourselves as a 2-player, or just, you know what, don't feel like getting into a super heavy brain burner. But yeah, Castles of Burgundy is, yeah, it's our game, and it's our favorite school night game.
For sure. And the difficulty level can be kind of scaled in. This is another good game to bring in people into the hobby. And they can play the simple board, you can play a really difficult board, and you can all enjoy it at the same time. That is my number 6, Castles of
I guess my 21.
Castles of Burgundy.
All right, so my number 7, the arguably highest Martin Wallace game on my list. We'll leave that up to other people to discuss, but this is Brass, and I guess technically is Brass Lancashire, since there's a new version with Brass Birmingham coming out. I'm almost like speechless on how to describe how good Brass is, and I struggle with the game. I'm definitely not a high-level player at this, but I enjoy that struggle of route building as well as the delivery aspect and keeping clear in my head the timing of when to make sure that you have enough money. Yes, it might not be the best action, but making sure you have enough money when it shifts from the canal phase going into the railroad phase.
No.
And yeah, I'm not good at it, but oh, how I do love me some Brass.
Yeah, it's so good. And this is one of the games that Edward was talking about at the beginning that I couldn't have on my list because it's not released yet. And I prefer...
Oh, the Brass Birmingham, you're saying?
I prefer Birmingham.
Okay. All right, cool. So, spoiler for next time.
Yeah.
Look for that one.
Ooh.
So, my number 7, Brass. So, since you already did your number 6, let me go ahead and say that, oh, hey, I can't talk about my number 6 because that's higher on Amanda's list.
However...
For the first time ever, at least in our top 50 or top 20, we both have the same number 5.
We do.
Yeah. So, the highest Uwe Rosenberg, I think, on both of our lists, right?
Yep.
Misery Farm, i.e. Agricola.
With Farmers of the Moor.
Yes, and this is one that, I'll be honest, I've never played the game without Farmers of the Moor.
I have once, and that was all.
I feel like Farmers of the Moor brings very low rules overhead to the game, but brings a fair bit of depth and breadth to the game without the overhead. So, and when we reviewed this eons ago, it feels like we also mentioned that we're reviewing it with the Farmers of the Moor. So, yeah, that's our experience with the game.
Yeah.
But I struggle. There is no game that forces me to more into an AP stupor than Agricola does, and it frustrates me because I don't really suffer from AP often. But ooh, do I in this game, because I am not good at it.
There's so many things that you want to do, and you don't have enough people, and then you need to try to make more people, and then you can't because you don't have enough stuff, and it's just...
And you don't have enough space. And,
yeah.
And what do you mean you took family?
Right. I wanted that.
Yeah. So this is my favorite, obviously, Uwe Rosenberg, and this is the tighter, tougher, meaner version of Uwe Rosenberg's designs that I thoroughly enjoy. Subsistence farming, I imagine back in the Middle Ages, was really hard. And this game models that in a sense that it's really hard to score well in this game.
Yep.
There's a reason that we have friends that have played this hundreds of times and it still gets to the table. So yeah, Agricola.
Both of our number 5s.
Yep.
My number 4
is my number 6.
Antiquity. This is my absolute favorite spotter. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is my favorite one. The second edition does help in that there's not a crap ton of little tiny pollutions everywhere.
Well, they're little tiddlywinks instead
right,
now.
Instead of little tiny chits. That does help a little bit.
32 punch boards.
Yeah, it took me and Rolf a long time. Yeah. Somebody sent me a picture on Slack of they weighed all of just the punch boards, and it was like 10 pounds or something. Stupid. It was crazy. It may not have been 10 pounds, but it was an exorbitant amount of weight. I was like, what?
And that's why we punched the games before we brought them back from Essen.
Yep.
This game actively hates you. This game is actively trying to kill you. And this is one of those games that does not get out of the way and let the players fight amongst themselves. You're fighting against the players secondarily to fighting the game because the game is trying to kill you. And it's all about, it's a Civ game with a little bit of Tetris and a little bit of resource conversion in it. That brutally hard, thoroughly enjoyable, and I enjoy the struggle. This is the game that taught me, this and our number 5, Agricola, taught me that apparently I'm a closet masochist. Obviously, if I have these two games this high on my list, and I guess I should mention this is my number 6, your number 4. Yeah, absolutely love the pain and misery that this and Agricola both bring.
I guess we both are because there's Agricola right in between and mine's above and yours is below. It's the same. Yeah.
Fantastic Civ game if you enjoy the struggle that is Antiquity.
Yeah, if you enjoy the struggle of a game wanting to kill you, then you would really enjoy Antiquity. And again, that's my number 4, Edward's number 6.
My number 4 and the 2016 Golden Elephant Award winner.
My number 9.
1822, Railways of Great Britain. It's my favorite 18XX at the moment.
Yeah.
I love the amount of auctions. We just did an 8.5-hour live stream of a Saturday or two ago of the full game. It was pretty funny. I got emails from Simon, the designer, Simon Cutforth, telling us how uncomfortable he was watching the first set of the game because our group played it so unorthodox, and he was really uncomfortable. Like he was yelling at the screen, telling us what we were doing wrong.
That's awesome.
And then he said, "Okay, he said I can't even watch the second session. I'm too stressed out." The second session, he wrote me an email not too long ago and said, "You know what? That one was much better. That I really enjoyed that. I'm not sure where anybody is in the game. I'm excited to check out how it finishes."
That's awesome.
And I think it's cool. And yes, maybe it's not. I'm never going to get high level on any of these games. As long as we have a show, it's just never going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
And I don't care to. But what I do know is I thoroughly enjoy running good companies in 18XX games. And I enjoy the tease that is all the candy or all the auctions that take place during this game. And the different timing mechanisms that are in this game and the variable start, that the order of which the private companies and the minors and the majors can all come in. And it keeps the game fresh, and it helps me with my UK geography ahead of going to the UK Games Expo, so I know where Birmingham is.
There you go.
But in all seriousness, this is my favorite 18XX that I've played.
Mm-hmm.
I would happily play this on a weekly basis going forward.
Yeah.
And I can't get enough 1822. So really huge fan of this game.
Yeah, I would agree. This is my favorite 18XX game as well for right now anyway. And you do not feel like you've played it for however long it is. It does not feel like it's been 10 hours. It just flies by because it's so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, with the stream, we did it over the course of 8.5 hours without the teach. Realistically, you're probably looking at a 6 to 8 hour game of it. But if that's something, if you enjoy auctions and you enjoy run good company games, 1822 is definitely going to be up your alley. So that's my number 4.
And my number 9, 1822.
All right. So your number 3 and number 2, ma'am.
My number 3 we'll talk about here in a minute. My number 2 was your number 10, Puerto Rico.
Yes, the age-old classic, and it will likely stay that way.
Yeah, because this was my number 2 last time as well.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
okay, all right.
was.
So that stayed the same.
Did.
So I'm really curious what your number 1 is. So Puerto Rico.
It's one of those games to where you can have the exact same strategy every time that you go in and know that you're going to do this, and then you're going to do that, and then you're going to do that, and then you're going to do that. Or you can come in fresh every single time and not do the same thing every, you can have a plan or you can not. And it's just as fun either way.
And for me, I would argue that the players dictate whether or not your plan is going to be successful or not. And this is one of those games to where when you take actions, you don't necessarily want to take the best action for yourself, but you want to do the action that mitigates how good your opponents can do, because everybody gets to follow whatever action that you choose. Every time it hits the table, I want to play it more, and I've yet to ever tire of playing in Puerto Rico. Thankfully, we've never encountered some of those players.
Right.
But you know what? Good on us in a sense that we haven't encountered that. I know some people swear off Puerto Rico because they have.
It's so sad.
Which, those players being those that, no, so-and-so took this action, you need to take that. Don't do that. Shut up and let them play their game.
Yeah, just that's no way to be.
Right. So Puerto Rico, fantastic classic. It was number 1 on BGG for the longest time, and it's still way up there.
It's because it's awesome.
Yep.
My number 2.
And my number
10.
10, yes.
Puerto Rico.
So my number 3, sadly, not on your list anywhere? Really? No, it's in your top 50, isn't it?
Yes.
All right. Dominant species. If you listen to the show, you pretty much know what my top 3 are, but that's okay. Dominant species. Mitigation of chaos. That's what this game is about. It is one of the best worker placement games out there, in my opinion. And it also forces you to, frankly, just mitigate risk and understand what is a priority when, and having a shift of getting your species out on the board, as well as knowing when to scale that back and wait for there being some really, really nasty cards. It could also be manipulating turn order so that you're able to take some of those cards and use them either offensively or take them defensively so that they're not used against you. This is the very first video that I ever made for the hobby. I did a how to play on this. Wow, it was terrible quality, but thorough.
Yes, it was.
And it did a good job, I feel like. But yeah, Dominant Species, it's one that we're anxious to live stream. And it's one of my most played games of all time and will forever be one of my favorites.
This will always have a special place in my heart because of how much you love it.
Yep. So
and it's definitely grown on me. I used to dislike it really badly, and now.
Well, that's because there's that negative interaction to where you're having to hurt other players.
And that used to really bother me. Now I don't care because I'm mean, I guess. But whatever.
It's just the game.
Well, and I finally have gotten to the point to where I understand that. And
it's made our playing games much more enjoyable because of it.
It has.
So that's my number 3 and somewhere in Amanda's top 50. Dominant species.
It's in the D area of my top, of my 21 to 50.
All right. So my number 2 and Amanda's number 3 is a system, much more so than just a game.
Age of Steam.
160 some odd maps out there. A game that if you go back and listen to the show way back in the day, everybody who had a part of the show hated this game. It's very important to match the player count with the maps, which we did not do early on.
That's right.
But yeah, Age of Steam. Pick up and deliver, auction game, route building. Horribly difficult at times and wonderfully devious at the best of times.
Yes.
I never tire playing Age of Steam, and the just plethora of maps that are available keeps the game perpetually fresh, and we will never likely tire of playing Age of Steam.
The only way that I can ever see tiring of Age of Steam would be tiring of a map. I don't see tiring of the system because each map can be so hugely different that it really does, like you said, it always keeps it fresh.
Yep. So my number 2, Amanda's number 3, Age of Steam. Which brings us to our number 1. So I don't know if this is a good sign or it's boring or what, but my number 1 hasn't changed in a long time.
Mine either.
That's Vladislav's
masterpiece?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Through the Ages. It's a Civ game. I'm not real good at this. I struggle. Has an amazing app implementation now. And it feels epic without having a bore. It still blows me away how you can have an epic feeling Civ game without having a map and dudes on a map.
Yeah.
Blows me away.
It's just cards.
My all-time favorite. And I hope it gets supplanted someday because that means that is one hell of a game that somebody has designed.
Because this hasn't moved in years, and it's because it's like a baseline of, if you want it, is it as good as Through the Ages? No, okay. It's the ultimate Civ game. It's the ultimate take that.
Well, I don't know about take that, but
it can be.
Well, yeah. Really? You think so?
I think it can be, yeah, especially if you are behind in military.
Oh, well, then that's a you problem. If you fell way behind on military, just like in real life, if you make yourself a target in history as a weak civilization, history is written by the victors. You ain't having history written about you. But the epic feel going through literally through the ages, and with the resource utilization and the management of your resources, which is what a Civ game should be, I feel like. This piqued my interest from the very beginning of being in this hobby, and that has not waned an ounce. That said, I will never play this 4 players.
No.
2 players, 3 players only. I know there's some of you out there that will happily play this 4 players.
It just takes so long.
I won't do that. So, 2 or 3 player game, best game of all time, in my opinion.
And in mine.
Through the Ages. Whew. That's a long list.
Whew.
All right, so a couple housekeeping things here regarding the list, because I find this stuff interesting, which means I imagine other people do as well, right?
I would.
So real quick, I struggled really hard for hours today getting from 52 down to 50.
Literally, it took him hours to negate 2 games.
Number 52 kicked off the list, Brussels, 1893. It's the only one I could justify, which I really like the game. Okay, being number 52, still awfully good.
Yes.
Number 51, and I'm sorry, Brian. Okay, I'm sorry. But Advanced Civ / Mega Civ. Simple fact was, I just never get it to the table. Only at a major convention is this something that is realistically ever going to get played here.
Yeah.
Or if Brian ever makes the trip up here to play this, that would be awesome. But that said, that's why it's number 51. But it's still number 51.
Right. It's not like it's not even anywhere in sight.
So we both went through both of our lists from the last time we did this 540 days ago.
Yes.
And we made a list of what fell off the list and what game. So what fell off and what was new. You want to go first?
Sure. So the games that fell off of my list are as follows: 18 Mex, 18 OE, Bora Bora, Kalis, City Tycoon, Fields of Arla, Mombasa, Panamax, and Tigris and Euphrates.
That's a pretty solid list, though.
That's a pretty good list.
But they're still all up there. They're just not in your top 50,
Correct.
Right? All right, so what replaced them?
Grand Austria Hotel, Great Western Trail, Keeper, New Amsterdam, Orit Labora, Terraforming Mars, The Colonists, Tramways, and Vinos.
So that's 10 games?
Mm-hmm.
So 20%.
I think it was 9, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, 9.
So 9. So just under 20% of turnover in almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that's a pretty solid list then you have if there's not that much turnover. So that's cool. For me, I had 10 out and 10 new ones in. So 20%. Pretty consistent on that. So the ones that were out, 1860, 1880, 1889, Advanced Civ / Mega Civ, Cavum, Kanban, New Amsterdam, Pax Porfiriana, St. Petersburg, and Triumph and Tragedy. All still in my top 100, though. Those aren't going anywhere. The new ones, 1822, An Infamous Traffic, Forbidden Stars, Forged in Steel, Lisboa, or at Labora. I still wonder how the hell it wasn't on here to begin with. Pax Renaissance, Sekigahara, Stratomatic Baseball, and Tramways.
Nice.
So that's it. That is our top 50 of all time.
And a really long episode.
Right now. For now.
For the minute.
Okay, that's over. It's probably a different top 50 at this point. All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We didn't give a whole ton of thoughts or else this would have been a 4-hour episode. Mm-hmm. But tell us what you think. Tell us what your top 50 is, which I found it to be a bit cathartic in a sense that it forces me to really stop and think about what it is that I'm enjoying in the various games that we're playing, because we're playing a ton of games. And to limit it to this list is really hard. Yeah. But it's also a fun process. But I'm also glad that I only committed to doing this once a year now.
Yes, and I honestly would challenge everybody to do it because it makes you really think about if you truly want to play that game, or if you're just doing it because you think your friends want to, or just like you having to really struggle to leave Castles of Burgundy out of your top 20 because it has such sentimental value. That shouldn't matter. What should matter is the play and whether you want to play it and whether it truly belongs in your top 20 or not.
I think that's a really good point. And for those that like to keep a tidy collection, you frame whatever number tidy would be for you. I think this is a good exercise to help you do exactly that and figure out what's really important to you in your collection. Yeah. And it's not all about getting the latest, greatest, because if you look at our top 10, I mean, it's a whole lot of mix of a whole lot of older games and some newer stuff mixed in here.
Yep.
But they're classics for a reason. They stay that way. No one's taking your games away from you. So it doesn't mean that you can't just enjoy the games you have and occasionally pick something up, right?
That's right.
All right. Whew, I'm tired.
Me too.
That was a long episode.
It was.
At least for where we're at nowadays. Yeah. We're used to about a 60, 75-minute episode.
Yeah. So I'm off to edit.
And I'm off to go set up Seize the Bean.
Yes.
Should be a good time. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Give us feedback.
Please.
Let us know. And next episode 100. Welcome to the century mark, Heavy Cardboard.
What?
Catch y'all then.
Bye.